so he only exerted it for good. But the Prophet ﷺ making dua for that shows you something. It tells you something about how the Messenger ﷺ views strength. And what was Umar's motto? You know, Umar radiallahu anhu, when he came in to Islam, he said, wait a minute, aren't we on truth? What are we hiding for? Right? And sometimes that led him to mistakes as well. Because on the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, Umar radiallahu anhu said, Alasna ala al-haq, we're on the truth, they're on falsehood, let's go fight. But the point is that Umar radiallahu anhu always saw this, he had this great sense of pride. We're on the truth, we don't have anything to shy away from. And there is a dua that Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu made, and it's a very, very, very powerful dua. It's actually really hard to translate. But he said, Allahumma inni ashku ilayka ajza thiqa wa jaldat al-fajr. Allahumma inni ashku ilayka ajza thiqa wa jaldat al-fajr. Which means, and it's a hard thing to translate. Right? I know we've got some people that would make an attempt, but it means, oh Allah, I complain to you of the incompetence or the weakness of the trustworthy people, of people that are people of thiqa, people of truth. I complain to you of their incompetence or their weakness. Jaldat al-fajr is the strength of the wicked. That a wicked person is proud, and a person upon truth is either weak or incompetent and incapable. Ajz is, of course, a sense of being incapable. So Umar radiallahu anhu did not feel like we should ever feel weak or we should ever feel incapable, no matter what our circumstances are. And he wanted that to show itself in every context, and he himself is the greatest embodiment of that. And the Prophet ﷺ saw great good in the coming of Islam, to Islam of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So the appearance of strength, showing power. There are many different examples of this. You know, in the Battle of Uhud, Abu Dujana radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he came out and he was strutting. He was strutting, he was showing off his moves, and the Sahaba felt like it was arrogance, it was boasting. A lot of people were looking at Abu Dujana like the Prophet ﷺ can't be happy with this. He had his red bandana on, he was out there showing off, taunting the enemy. He literally was strutting. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that Allah loathes, Allah hates this type of strutting, except in these circumstances. So right now, it's all good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like this type of behavior, or that type of showing off in a way and taunting and boasting, except in these circumstances. That Abu Dujana was basically showing the enemy, we're not afraid. We're not scared of you. Right? And that's something that, you know, Zayd, you do a lot of that, right? There's a lot of strutting. You got to calm down with the strutting, right? But that's something that's very powerful, that the Prophet ﷺ appreciated that. And there is a Quranic precedent to that as well. What does Allah say? وَأَعِدُّوا لَهُمْ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ. You know, that doesn't mean fight them. It means أَعِدُّوا لَهُمْ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ. Strike fear by showing strength. It's talking about in the context of battle. Show them your power. Show them your strength. Show them that you're not afraid. Line up in a way that shows, that would intimidate them. You know, it literally means intimidate them. And in these situations, obviously in battle, you don't want to be weak. So as humble, these Muslims who were standing up at night, making dua, you know, asking Allah for victory, that were so humble, and some of them had, you know, like these excuses for swords to fight with. But when they stood in battle, they stood with their best clothes, they stood with pride, they looked like they were ready, and they were completely unafraid. And that was something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised. There was one incident that took place. I actually was going to do a lecture at ICNA on this. Changed my mind. Now I have to change my speech for ICNA. Just because I felt like this was such, subhanAllah, a powerful incident that took place. In the Battle of Qadisiyah, which was the battle with the Persians, the Persian Empire used to employ elephants in battle. So they literally would bring forth these elephants that would stomp on the opposing army. Okay? Stomp on the opposing army. You know? And subhanAllah, with this, if you can just imagine the scene at that time, how do we deal with elephants that are trained to go mow down an army? So while the Muslims were trying to figure out their plan to deal with the elephants, Al-Qa'qa' radiallahu anhu, Al-Qa'qa' ibn Amr, great companion, a man who was a very strong man, he came up with this idea. He said, you know what? كَمَا لَهُمْ فِيلًا نَصْنَعُ نَحْنُ فِيلًا. They have elephants, we need to figure out a way to make elephants. They're like, what are you talking about? So he took the camels and he did something with the camels and dressed them with something, put like some kind of structure, the hoj on top of them, which was the hut that used to carry people, then put some sort of cloth on top of it, and he made the camels look huge. And so when the camels came forth, the elephants turned around and ran away because they didn't know what those things were. So they were terrified of these beasts because we've never seen any beasts like this before. And it worked in battle. So this is what it is. Just like they have elephants, we need to make elephants. If as Muslims we're feeling disadvantaged, the irony is not lost on the Republican and Democrat symbols here, but we need to come up with, we need to show an appearance of strength. And that's a methodology. It worked. They said, you know what? We just got to figure out a way to turn them away, to show that we're not intimidated. So that appearance of strength also showed itself most predominantly there in battle. So, strength is something that, as we mentioned, has to be governed with strength first and foremost against yourself, to make sure that you yourself do not become unjust. That was the beauty of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that his strength did not lead him to a place of arrogance, but instead it led him to humility, and he knew when to exert that power and exert that strength. And showing that strength and displaying a lack of vulnerability as a manhaj, it's a methodology. What are some other contexts? Imam Malik rahimahullah, he talked about thiyab al-shuhra. Thiyab al-shuhra, translation of thiyab al-shuhra would be flashy clothes, I guess, or the clothes of fame, the clothes of power. Okay, so a person wears distinguishing clothes. And Imam Malik rahimahullah used to wear the best clothes. And he wanted imams as well. And this was also the way that Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, Imam Abu Hanifa not only used to wear the best clothes, Imam Abu Hanifa would buy clothes for his students. He'd buy their shoes, he'd buy their clothes. I'm not Imam Abu Hanifa, not in ilm, nor will I buy you any shoes. All right, just to make that very clear. But he used to buy clothes, he used to buy shoes, he used to spend on his students because he had that much money because he was a merchant before he took the journey of knowledge and after. So Imam Malik rahimahullah was asked about thiyab al-shuhra, the look that he had, the wearing of certain clothes that indicated status. And he saw that it was important for the scholars to be respected. So to him, he saw that it was important for the scholars to be revered and to wear something that would distinguish them. Of course, that didn't mean that they were to be arrogant, that this has to come with modesty, this doesn't justify extravagance, but it means something. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu raised the salaries of all government workers when he became the Khalifa and the scholars because he did not want them to have to be, I don't know if bribable is a word, all right? But he didn't want people to bribe them. And so he wanted them to be well off and self-sufficient so that they could display a sense of dignity. When the scholars are beggars, it's going to lead to an opposite extreme, right? And we see the effects of that, by the way, all right? And so, subhanAllah, I'm not going to talk about which Muslim countries, but I've been in many Muslim countries where because the imams and because the scholars are they're so low in terms of their salary and they can be bought, or they're forced in a position of compromise. So the Prophet ﷺ wanted scholars and he wanted imams and he wanted people that had responsibility to be able to display some sort of izzah, some sort of self-sufficiency, not to become extravagant, not to become businessmen, but to be independent. And that was an important part of the way that these people used to think. You think about, and this is actually something very powerful, Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahimahullah, who was a great scholar, one of the greatest of the generations following the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was extremely wealthy because of what he used to do before he became a scholar. And he continued being a merchant even after he became a scholar. And because of that, you have Sufyan ibn Uyayna, Sufyan al-Thawri, Hamad ibn Salama, Hamad ibn Zayd, Al-Fudayl ibn Ayyad, Ismail ibn Ulayya. These are people that are of the greatest scholars of the Ummah. He used to spend on them. So basically, he used to give them all their money so that they didn't have to worry about that, so that they could worry about doing the work of ilm. And he used to say that, لَوْلَا هَؤُلَاء مَا تَجَرْتُ. He said, if it wasn't for these 6 people, I would not work anymore. But I do it so that these people can focus and that they can be dignified and that they can be strong and they can be independent and they can be respected in society. Likewise, on a community level, on a societal level, and I think I mentioned this already, but just because it fits with the topic, with Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, rahimahullah ta'ala, when Umar ibn Abdul Aziz assumed the Khilafah and he wanted to strip the masjid, the masajid, of all of the ornaments and all of the different structures and things that were there. And some of the scholars told Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, it's important for us to be on par with the churches and the other places of worship that we're interacting with. So we don't have to be extravagant. We don't have to get a chandelier from Turkey that has to be hand-delivered, or carpet that's made in Muscat to cover the entire masjid, and there are no spaces. We're okay. But at the same time, this idea of having a place that looks respectable, having a place that shows strength, that shows dignity, that means something. And that's why the Muslims took their architecture very serious in history. And the scholars encouraged that the Muslims were pioneers. They were architects of architecture, right? They showed the beauty of architecture with Islamic themes because they understood this notion. How does this play out in many different contexts? The Prophet ﷺ, some of the scholars mention in this idea of displaying strength, and making use of strength no matter what, that the Prophet ﷺ had the swords that were made in Rome and Persia. So the Prophet ﷺ only had the best swords. The Prophet ﷺ made sure that he equipped himself with whatever was at his disposal, and that the Prophet ﷺ had the best of everything. So prestige can be harmful. Strength can be harmful. Power can be harmful. All of these things can be harmful. But it is not for the Muslims to put themselves in positions of vulnerability or to display weakness and vulnerability. I go back to Muhammad Ali, rahimahullah, and I think the most beautiful and dignified moment of Muhammad Ali, it brings tears to my eyes every time I watch it, is when he's standing and this is during the anti-war stance that he took when he refused to be drafted, and he responded back and he said, "You're my opposer when I want freedom. You're my enemy when I want freedom." And he just completely shot it down. And here's this man that's bankrupt, that had his titles taken away from him, that was being denigrated in the media, that was about to go to prison, and you would not know it. He showed strength. He showed that he was unfazed. Now his family knew that he was very hurt by everything that was going on. He was feeling very vulnerable, but he continued to display that strength. And as Muslims, we should try to display that strength for the sake of those that are even more vulnerable than us, and try to uplift those that are vulnerable. And we should always seek the means of strength and the means that would allow us to be in a position of influence, in a position of power, where we can better adjust policies, where we can better move society. So I'm not sure if that was all coherent or not. I hope it was. But this is the concept of izzah, the concept of dignity and honor that we find from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Allahumma izza al-Islam bi'hab al-umarayn ilayk. Oh Allah, give victory to Islam, honor to Islam with the more beloved of the two Umars to you. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Questions? Yeah. Yeah, so the idea that Omar killed his daughter is a fabrication. And it's a very famous fabrication. And it's one that a lot of people will say. It's one that I used to say as well, just because you hear it